Hello and welcome. My name is Delmico L. Cunningham, better known as Dr. Media. So, in this video, what are we going to be talking about? Well, in this video, we're actually going to be looking at how you can texture objects directly here inside of Maya. So, many times when we talk about texturing workflows, we are looking at texturing that's probably done in something like Photoshop, where you can do raster based texturing, or something, maybe you're using something like Substance Painter or Substance Designer to make shaders and then bringing them into Maya. But really more I'm thinking about something like Photoshop, Substance Painter, things where you're going to get raster or raster, right? Raster or raster, raster based images out of. So we want to do this with more procedural shaders than we do with traditional kind of raster based images. So some things in here we would have to have some kind of raster based image for. So we've got a couple of like photo frames in here. We would definitely need like an image to bring in to put into those photo frames. We've got some stuff here. We've got glass here from Windows. Looks like some books and stuff like that. So one thing I want to do with this is I'm going to actually hide this guy right now. So I'm just going to hide that, hide all my walls and everything else. So now I have my scene with just my scene, so I can see inside of it pretty easy. So I've got some, looks like these probably would be the menus in here for our patrons of our diner. And we've got some donuts, even though those don't look like donuts, right? Those are kind of really elongated and kind of drawn out to be donuts. But we've got some dispensers here, stools. So this is a pretty decently simple modeled scene, right? It's nothing in here. Really, nobody was sitting here thinking about how much time it would take to cut these pieces in. Because this is not something that we would look at for modeling, because a lot of these things in here that I'm modeling here are kind of overkill on the modeling. These it could be modeled a lot more efficiently, but we're not looking at this for the modeling. We're looking at this how we can texture this. So let's go about texturing this directly inside of Maya without using any exterior programs to get our textures or get our shaders built for our models. So first thing I'm going to do is I am actually going to turn on, go in here and split my view, and I'm going to make this view right here. So panes, panel, and let's go in here to panel, and I'm going to go to Hypershade. So I want my Hypershade open so that I can see all of my shaders that I'm building in my scene. So there should be some base shaders already in here, and they are. So this scene came over from for Turbo Squid. So this scene already had shaders in it. We're going to take all those shaders and we're just going to delete them. So all those shaders that were in there are all gone. So my scene turns completely green because there's no shaders assigned to anything. So I'm going to select everything and then come in here to my Lambert, which is my default Lambert. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to say that I want to assign initial shading group. So now everything should end up being gray except for the floor. And the floor is not gray because we can see the normal of the floor is flipped the other way. So the floor is showing up black, not because it doesn't have a shader on it, but because the normal is flipped the other way. And I surmise this probably happened when they were first building this out. They were building it just from a cube, and they didn't really know which side was which. And you know, when you go to render this, Maya doesn't care. It'll force it to show a side, even if it's the wrong side. The shader will force it to show two-sided sometimes, even though your model is not. So I'm just going to do some quick housekeeping, and I am going to flip these models back the right way. So I'm going to come in here, and you've got to excuse me, I'm getting back used to using 2018 because for a very long time I was completely against moving up to the next version of Maya. I was like, there's not anything in it. 2016 didn't have anything in it that I really wanted to use. So I'm not moving up to 2016. 2017, once again, didn't really have anything that I needed to use. Didn't move up to it. 2018 came out and still had the same mindset. Like, yeah, I don't really need it. Not going to use it. But then I got a new video card to actually be able to render quicker with, and the new card actually has a renderer that's a real-time renderer that works with it, but the lowest version that it worked in was 2016. So yeah, I could have just gone with 2016, but I felt like if I was going to upgrade anyway, I might as well go to the newest version, which was 2018. So I did that. So after all this time, I am now finally using 2018 here at home. Now, I did use it at work, but I was still reluctant to go into it. So I'm looking in here. I'm trying to see where they have moved. It's not a flip. I'm really looking for my normals. And there we go. So the reverse didn't seem to work on this guy. So I tried to do a reverse on it. Let's just break this off. So I tried to do a reverse on this. Let's look at this. Select the faces. So let's make sure. Let's see if we grab a face. Will that? Yep, there it goes. That's what was wrong. Okay. So anywhere you see this black banding, this is because the face is actually turned the wrong way. So we're just gonna fix that in all of these guys first, because we're gonna need to have to do that anyway, because we want to make sure that the normal side of our object is actually what we're working with, and not. We don't want to depend on Maya fixing it for us, because we know what the issue is. We can go ahead and fix it for ourselves. So that is my mindset, right? Don't assume that Maya will actually fix it with your textures. If you know what's going on, then just fix it, right? And it's pretty simple. Looks like they had a bunch of these books on top of each. Oh, that's the jacket. Okay, I see what that is now. It's the jacket on top of my book, so we're not gonna mess with that. This guy right here is reversed the wrong way. I'm gonna reverse him. Or are we? Looks like this geometry was oh yeah, see that they made that too thin. There we go. Now that's fine. Sometimes when you get these scenes like this, you have to make sure someone else didn't flub it up. So if you're, and I downloaded this scene from Turbo Squid. It was a free scene, right? I'm not really giving a bunch of hate because of the stuff that I'm having to do. It's really, like I say, it's a free scene. So somebody took their time to model this, and we're able to use this as a model. And I'll put a link to this model on Turbo Squid in the description of this video. So we're able to use someone else's work, right? They're letting us they're letting us use their work. They're saying, hey, I model all this stuff, and I'm gonna let you use it. So I'm not really trying to just rag on them because of that. But you need to always make sure you check out a scene before you start modeling, or not modeling, but doing whatever you're going to do. If you're going to use that stuff as assets in your own work, you need to check it out to make sure that it is relatively free of any kind of things that are going to glitch out and cause your scene harm. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to save this, and this is going to be Cafe. I'm just going to save this to my desktop because I got a lot of stuff going on. So let's open back up our Hypershade. So there is our Hypershade, and I want to work with my little couch right here. So I am going to isolate this couch by itself. So to isolate this, I'm going to hit Control+1 on the keyboard. Control+1 is the isolation key. And if you hit Control+1 again, it will unisolate, right? So if you hit Control+1, it isolates. Hit Control+1 again, it unisolates everything. So I've got my Hypershade open here, and what I want to do is I want to make myself a new shader. I'm going to start out with just the seat part of my banquette. So, you know, most people call this a booth. It's also going to be called a banquette, right? So terms are interchangeable. So I'm going to make myself a brand new shader. So here inside of Hypershade, and let's just close that tab. There we go. So here inside of Hypershade, let's give myself some room to work. I kind of don't like how they've moved down a bunch of stuff inside of Hypershade. I do appreciate this new little material viewer, but it's really not necessary. I really don't need this thing. This thing is kind of annoying at times. I really super don't care about it, you know. So, but it's there. The thing I don't like about it is that when you can't crush it, so it won't keep going until it crushes down. If it would crush, then I would be okay with it, I think. I'm gonna do this because that is just getting on my nerves. Super is. So yeah, let's do that. Much better. And put that up there. There we go. So yeah, now we're cooking with gasoline. That's a lot better. And that's one thing I like about Maya, right? Maya is very customizable. If you don't like the way something is, then move it around and get it the way you want it, which is awesome about Maya. So now that I've got this, I'm gonna go here to my favorites. And these favorites are default favorites inside of Maya. So I'm gonna get my layered shader. So let's get that, and I'm gonna rename this layered shader. I'm gonna call this leather, and see if we can do parentheses around it. Probably can't. Yep, it took out the parentheses and put our underscores in, which is fine. So I got leather booth, and I'm gonna say composite. So if you've never used a layered shader here inside of Maya, the way that it works is it works just like the layers, really like the layers panel inside of Photoshop. So as you look at your little panel over here, you can see there is a green texture. This is just a texture. This is not a shader in here right now. This is just a texture. And if you click in the open space of this little panel, it'll add additional textures. So these are 2D textures that it's adding in here, and they're basically just color flags, and they just stay in there. They're not super useful, honestly. They do get you to understand how the layering inside, how this inside of Maya works. You have to be careful because you'll think you're clicking on the little square sometimes, and you're really not. You're still clicking on the gray space, and you'll keep adding these little stupid little texture sheets in here. But you can see how this works, right? So the top of your stack is the very first mark in here inside of your layered shader panel. So this is like being at the top of the layer, and this is underneath it. So you really have to think of this thing being turned vertically on its side to understand how the layering works in here. Now, why they did not just do a traditional just layer, I cannot tell you. It's always been this way inside of Maya. So don't shoot the messenger, right? I'm going to build this out with a let's just use like a Fong E, and this is going to be leather shader. And I'm going to change the color of it. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use a color per se. I'm going to go in here and use my texture node. And I am going to go and get, there actually is a leather. So if you look in here in my 3D textures, there is a leather texture in here. So what's nice about this little texture slot is that it actually has the patterning of how leather would look, right? So I'm going to use that leather. I can change the color of it. I can turn the creases off and on if I want to, so I don't have to have them. I can change the spottiness of this. So I can change how spotty it is, the density of it. All right, so there's some really, I can change the cell size of this. So there's some nice things in here that actually give me a pretty decent leather texture, right? Because this is all texture. I do still need to go back out. So this is in my color slot. What I want to try to do for this is not just have it in my color slot right there. I want to, let me bring this, let's see if we can bring these below the sky. Can we? Yep, we can. There we go. That's really what I want. That's what I want. Oh yeah, that's fine. I don't care if he's all tiny and crushed down there. What I really want to be able to do is, this is my shader graphed out inside of my Hypershade, so I can see what's going on. So let's go here. Let's right click on this shader and let's say graph network. And this is the network that I currently have and I'm currently using. So I can see that this is the shader itself, and this is the surface shader. So the surface shader is that Fong E. So the Fong E makes up the surface of the shader, and this is the actual nodes that go into that Fong E to describe it to Maya. Now, something else to be very concerned with and to know is that Maya now no longer has MentalRay. So 2018 Maya no longer has MentalRay. It is using Arnold as its default renderer. It does still have Turtle as a renderer that you can choose inside of Maya, but MentalRay is gone, and Arnold is now the full-time replacement for that rendering engine. So I can actually take Maya materials and render them in Arnold, but I can't render Arnold materials in Maya software renderer, because the Maya software renderer and the Maya hardware renderer are still in there as a part of Maya as well, except if I texture everything with the Arnold shaders, they would not render if I used Arnold as my rendering engine, right? So one thing I want to do, I can see with this leather, I've got this out alpha, I've got this color out, which is basically just a composite of red, green, and blue, and they're composited together to give me this out color. So I'm going to see on this out alpha if the out alpha will actually, let's try something. Let's see. I don't know what's going to happen if I try this. So I know that I have bump mapping in here. So for bump mapping, I'm going to see if I can take this out alpha and drag it into the bump mapping. Let's see if that's a thing, right? So let's see, there's my color, there's my diffuse. So I'm going to see if I can take this into another node. Let's just see. See how we could do that. So I'm going to go here to bump mapping, and I'm going to use leather here. So that's fine. It gives me this. I just needed to have, let me do it this way, because that looks confusing. So I'm going to go get a utility. So here inside of Maya, inside of my nodes up here, I'm going to go look for a utility node. And the utility node that I want, if it's in here, is my bump. Where's my bump 3D at? Where's my bump node? There it is, my bump 3D node. So boom, got a bump 3D node, and there's my out normal. I'm gonna connect this out normal to my normal. All right, so this right here goes to the normal. So if I look back in here at the actual stuff in my channel box over here, you can see bump mapping, bump 3D1 is now connected to that, so the value of this. So what's gonna make this really easy is I'm gonna take the out alpha from this guy and take it into this bump value. So from that same leather, it's gonna give me the color for my color, and it's also gonna give me, I'm also gonna take the alpha, run it through this bump 3D node, and then output that as a normal map. So if I look at this now, you can see I've got my normal coming out of this, and the normal is being driven by the alpha of this texture. So if I look at this right now, you can see, look at that. It's got like a little bit of weird texturing bumpiness to it, which is what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to middle mouse click and drag this onto my object, and you can see it is on there. If I hit 6 to show textures, you see it on there. So this leather shader, I'm going to middle mouse click and drag it to my layered shader and then drop it right there. And I'm going to get rid of this green because I don't want the green anymore. So now you'll see that my leather shows up on my object. All right, so I've got leather on this object, which is super kind of cool, right? It's a 3D node. So if you look here, there is a place 3D texture node here. I'm going to click on that place 3D texture node, and I can click on fit to group BB. So it's basically fit to group box. So what it does is there's actually, if I unisolate this box here is how the shader, or how that texture rather, knows how to map itself to this 3D object. So instead of having to unwrap this like I normally would have to, I don't have to unwrap it because it's using this box basically as a way to unwrap this for me. So it's not really unwrapping it, but it's projecting it onto the surface the way that it should be. It's treating it like a box and putting it around everything. So if I scale this box and move this box around, it will actually scale the texture for me. That's how I'm scaling my texture, is by scaling the actual box, which is kind of cool if you ask me. It's kind of a cool way to be able to do it. So I'm basically just using this box as a manipulator of the texture. So I've got this. Let's go back and reselect this. Let's go back and re-isolate this by itself. So I'm going to see if with the new video card in here, will this render in real time for us? Let's see. Let's activate the Pro Renderer and see if the Pro Renderer will actually render this for us at all. It might just crap the bed. It might just be like, nope. Let's see. Oh, no, there it comes. So this is actually real time. So right now I'm real time rendering this in my viewport with Radeon's Pro Render plugin. Now the cool thing about it is the plugin is free, right? The plugin from AMD is free, and most companies don't give you things for free, but AMD does, because they want everybody using their technology, right? So they're like, hey, you can have it, man. We just want you to use it and like do some really cool kick-ass stuff with it. So you can see it does take a little bit of time when it's working in real time, but if you leave your viewport alone for a second, you'll see it kind of come into play. I'm gonna make sure. Let's check something on our render. Let's go into settings really quick. And you could check CPU, and it uses the CPU as well. So now it's using everything. It's using my CPU and my GPUs to basically render this in real time for us. I'm going to drop a light in here. And just for a second, I think it's rendering. It's probably having fun rendering all that stuff because it's got a light in there now. So I'm gonna go back to our normal renderer, our normal viewport for just a second. And let's see, where's the light at? Is that the light? Is that my lonely light? Yeah, I think it is. Let's go back to the Pro Renderer viewport view. So with the Pro Renderer from AMD, and like I say, it's free to use if you, depending on what, no matter what kind of video card you have, they let you use it for free. Of course, it's going to work way better on AMD GPUs because they were, I mean, it was really invented for those GPUs, right? So but it still will work on an NVIDIA GPU, even if you don't have it'll also work on Intel integrated graphics. I don't know how fast that would be because Intel integrated graphics are pretty darn slow in the beginning. But what's really cool about the Pro Renderer here is that it looks at your intensity of your lights in watts. So right now it's a 1 watt bulb. So if I said 40 watts, this is what the brightness of a 40 watt bulb would be. And give it time to re-render out. Right? And we can say it's viewable, enabled shadows, everything's good. Good. But that's just really cool that I'm able to see that in viewport. I'm able to see all this stuff happening in viewport, which is pretty cool. You do have the ability to change some things around. I can do like a direct illumination. I could look at just shadows inside of my viewport. I could look at wireframes, which will show me all the wireframes, which is actually pretty good. All right, so it's showing me, it's rendering all the wireframes in real time. And all this is happening in real time, right? Material IDs, position, where things are at in 3D space. Normal maps, I can see the normals of my objects and where the normals face on my objects. Texture coordinates, and then I can also see ambient occlusion. So this is very useful to a 3D artist that's constantly working in 3D. Like being able to see this, almost all this stuff in real time, is like a dream come true. It was a dream come true to me when I saw it for the first time. I almost wet my pants. I was kind of like, squee. Some people are probably like, what did you just do? Squee. Right? Yeah. So anyway. I'm going to put this back to the normal viewport 2.0, and I'm going to get rid of this light, because that light again would not work inside of Arnold because it doesn't understand Arnold and things like that. So I'm going to go to the settings for my hardware renderer 2.0. So this is the default viewport renderer for Maya, and I'm going to turn some things up. I'm going to say my light limit, turn it up, 16 lights, GPU instancing. That's going to stay the same. Transparent shadows, I want to be able to see those. And then my max texture is like an 8K texture. Let's see. Let's actually do screen-based ambient occlusion. So we can see ambient occlusion in our screen inside of here, but we're gonna do it with this. And then motion blur, no, I don't care about it. I'm gonna do smooth wireframes. No, not smooth wireframes, that's okay. Let's do multi-sampling, anti-aliasing. That'll get rid of the jaggies for us, and everything else is good. So let's close this. So now you can see I've got screen-based ambient occlusion happening in here. So if I actually, put this back in here the right way, let's do a fit box. There we go. So you can see now I've got ambient occlusion happening in here in the viewport. So Maya has some pretty decent little tricks of its own in the viewport. You just have to have a powerful enough video card to be able to show those little tricks inside of the viewport. So if I come in here, and I know this is a whole separate tangent, but especially when you're trying to see things inside of Maya, and you're wondering, well, why can't I see it the way that I want to see it? Well, this is why. You need a card that is able to process this stuff in real time the way that you really want it to be. So let's say samples, let's do 32 samples, which is a pretty high amount, right? And then even motion blur you could do inside of here when you translate things. That's not as useful. But yeah, you're able to have those things directly inside of the viewport. So back to my little texture thing going on in here. I'm just gonna delete these guys for a minute. I don't want to look at them. I don't want to see you, and I don't really need the what's it down there, the timeline and stuff either. So I'm gonna get rid of my status line. I'm gonna get rid of not those. I'm gonna get rid of the help line. I'm gonna get rid of the shelf. I'm gonna get rid of I'm gonna get rid of the time slider, the rangefinder, or slider rather. Yeah, that's really how I work inside of Maya, because I don't really need those other things when I'm texturing and lighting. I just need the tools to be able to texture and light with. So yeah, so there we go. So let's make sure we turn back on texture. So you hit 6 to see texture, hit 7 and you can see lighting. So I'm just gonna see texture. So I've got my leather right here kind of worked out. I'm gonna make another shader in here. There actually is another shader. There's a wood texture, a 3D wood texture. I'm gonna use that for this outside part here, but you have to make it a part of a shader, right? So I'm gonna make a brand new shader. So I'm gonna make a brand new shader. So the surface, I am going to use a anisotropic. Anisotropic gives me those nice highlights like this. So I'm gonna use an anisotropic shader. Now these, like an anisotropic shader, this is a basic shader for Maya. It's not something, you know, super technical. It's a base shader, one of the base shaders of Maya. So the shaders that you would find normally inside of most 3D programs are anisotropic, Phong, the Phong E, the Lambert. Those are kind of base shaders, right? So those are, you can find those same types of shaders inside of other 3D programs. They might be named something different, but they are pretty much the same. Blend, same thing. So yeah. So what I want to do is anisotropic. I'm going to change this to my wood. So let's change its name. This is going to be wood. And I've got that shader. I middle mouse click and drag it. You can middle mouse click and drag stuff and drop it onto items, and that will actually drop that texture onto that, or drop that shader onto that object. I'm gonna come here to my wood, to my color right here, and go to my texture slot, and I'm gonna go get a 3D texture, and I'm gonna get the wood 3D texture. And let's graph this. So let's graph the network of this. And there it is right there. And I'm gonna click on this 3D texture node. I'm gonna fit to box. Something weird's happening with that one, because it's not showing it correctly. I wonder what's going on with it. Let's see. Let's go to Arnold here, and when you're working with Arnold, you have to use Arnold's lights. So I'm gonna just use an area light, an Arnold area light, and hopefully it's selected. It is. I'm going to scale it up. in size. Let's rotate it. And I have to actually admit, with my 2018, if you've got the right hardware, it's not really that big of a deal. But 2018 is more of a hardware resource hunger hog, more so than the others have been in the past, in my opinion. That's just in my opinion. I've been using Maya since version 4.5, so I kind of know a few things there, kiddies. Just a few. And let's see, let's expose this at let's expose it at 15. That's overexposed now. So let's go down to 5. It's underexposed. Let's just give my light more intensity before I start messing with too much exposure. So I'm going to say something like 12,000. That's pretty good. 12,000 is pretty good. And now I can start to deal with the exposure a little bit. Let's say 7. Oh yeah, it's, oh no, not that. Let's just do 7. Okay, that looks okay. Let's do 8. So I can see the texture in here. I can see that. I'm going to adjust that a little bit. I don't like that now that I synced it. I don't like it. I'm going to go here and let's graph that network. Get that 3D texture node. And I can get my scale tool and I want to scale this in just a little bit. So you can see how working with this right now, I'm able to see this and almost darn near in real time. So almost like the Pro renderer, it actually does start rendering when I let go of moving things around. So I'm able to see that as I'm moving these things around. So unlike your normal 2D textures, 3D textures don't have a UV. The box itself basically dictates the UVs of the object. So I'm just gonna just scale this down a little bit more. See what that looks like. It's coming along. It's coming along. Let's scale it down some more. Now with this particular texture, and I should go, let's go back and look at that, because with this particular 3D texture, I'm just going to do fit to box again. So with this particular one, the leather itself, so this leather right here, this leather actually has a way to change the cell size. So I can change my cell size on the actual shader, right? So by doing that, you can see now they're tiny. I'm gonna change the color of these. I don't like that brown. Let's go like let's do like a red. Like the 1950s Dynas. Let's click on our crease color. Let's make our crease color the same red, but a little bit darker. Not towards black. Just a little bit darker. Sometimes just like a one value. And let's also change the cell size. Let's make our cells like even smaller. Let's get close to this. Okay. That's not bad. That it's still, the highlight's still too strong. So that's not the actual color. What's handling that is actually my like highlight size and the whiteness on this particular item. So it's all my specular. Everything that I'm looking right now is all in my specularity. It's my specular shading. And then my specular color, let's make that, let's actually change that from being just this color like this. Let's go to my texture node, and I'm going to change my specular color to a ramp. And why I'm going to do that is that I can put colors in this. I'm going to put that darker color that we had, and then on this end down here, I'm going to put that lighter red color that we had. Maybe something like that. And you can change how this is wrapped around your object to a degree. I'm just going to do it on you. Leave it that way. And let's go out. And I've got a diffuse color here, translucency. I'm not going to bother any of that stuff. Reflectivity is very high. I'm going to turn that down. Let's do that like 0.2. And then reflected color. Reflected color right now is just black, right? That's not really accurate. The reflected color should be whatever my spec is, kind of. So one way I can do that is in here in my graph, I will look at my ramp and my ramp out right here, and I'm going to attach this to reflected color. So you can do your stuff over here, or if you're more comfortable with doing it here inside of your Hypershade, you can do it in here too. It doesn't really matter. It works the same way. So one thing that I do have an issue with is this wood. This wood is not really doing what I want it to do. I might not use it. I might just use something else, because let's break the connection on that. Let's go in here and look at what 2D textures that we actually have. I could just make that like a metal. I've got that water in here, but I don't think that's gonna do us. Yeah, it's not gonna, because there's really no color in it. This is really meant for that, for our water, as our shape, part of our water shader. So it's really not meant to be used as a shader like that. So we won't do it. I don't want it to be, I don't want it to be chromed out either. Let's see. Let's just do like a cloud, and let's see if the clouds show up the way that's supposed to. So Arnold, render. Is it rendering now? No, it's still not rendering. That's really awkward why this isn't rendering. Let's see, break connection. Let's change the color of it and see if it renders now, because it doesn't seem like it's rendering inside of Arnold at all. No, it's rendering, because there's the color changes happened. Let's turn up the ambient color. All right, turn up incandescence, make it glow. Transparency, see if that's working. Yeah, everything's working on it. It's just, it seems like nothing wants to go into that slot. Let's do mountain. Okay, well that goes in there. Not necessarily how we want it to. Let's go and graph this network and look at it. There is my 2D texture node. And can change that texture that way. It's not really what I want out of it, but I kind of don't want to keep futzing around with it because I could just go grab grab some other stuff and mix it together and make it. Let's do this. This is still my wood, right? Yep, that's still my surface. Let's do this. Let's go in here. Let's create a node. And I could just use one of I don't think Arnold has any materials in here. No, it doesn't. Arnold doesn't have any real materials in here. It's got a couple of textures, but no real. Yeah, it's looking for me just to build out a shader inside of here for that, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. What can we do? Let's see if we can try the marble. See what the marble does. It's just something really weird. It seems like these guys are just not applying like they should to the objects, which is weird. Let's click on this guy. Let's close this. Let's fit. Okay, the marble's showing up like it's supposed to do. Let's see if it renders like it's supposed to. Okay, the marble is rendering. I don't know why you would want a marble a marble booth. Like if you have this booth made of marble, that's a little overkill, realistically. But we can change some things about this marble. Hopefully, let's change things like the vein color. Let's do this vein color like a wood type color. It's like a brownish. And let's do the filler with that same brownish, but just like lighter a little bit. And diffuse it out through it. You can change the contrast of this. So now we've got all that stuff done. Is this the interactive cage for it? I think it is. No, that's my other one. So there we go. This is that node right there. So I'm just going to take this and squish it and scale it. And I know you're like, man, that's like magic. The only thing I did was I just, instead of having the texture like this, I just squished it like this. Squished it down, so now it looks more like a veneered wood than it does like marble. So I'm gonna go back to my shader now, and we can change the anisotropic, that little anisotropic highlight. We can make our surface a little bit rougher, change our Fresnel index a little bit. You can change the angle at which this inclusion happens. So something like right about here. I like that, how it kind of cuts off right there. It's pretty cool. I don't want that to go as far, so let's do something like this. I like whole numbers, right? Let's type in some numbers here. And 30. There we go. That's nice. Nice. Very nice. So there we go. Reflectivity is based off of anisotropic values. If you have this checked, you can turn this off and then base this off of whatever you want. You can turn down the reflectivity, but we'll keep it based off of the anisotropic settings. And what that means by it being based off the anisotropic settings is that it's using the Fresnel index, roughness, and the angle to basically understand how the highlight should show and how reflectivity should show. So got that. And that looks kind of like a veneered wood, which is I'm kind of happy about. I'm really kind of happy that works out that way. That's maybe not stretch it so far. Yeah, it looks like a veneered wood, right? It looks like a decent veneer. And let's go back to that leather shader again. Let's graph that guy. Let's go back to our 3D texture node in here. And on this one, I'm actually going to do some scaling on him too, because I don't completely like how that looks. So I've got this. Let's save this. So the last texture in here that I want to make, not the last, but one of the last ones I want to make, is I want to make another anisotropic. Or do I? Do I want another anisotropic? Let's do a Fong E. So I'm going to get a Fong E. And this is going to be my chrome. And what I want to do with this chrome is I have this chrome. Let's graph it out. And what I want to be able to do with this is I want to make a ramp. So I can look in my utilities up here. Oh, actually, that's a 2D texture. Sorry about that. So I'm going to get a ramp. There's my ramp right there. So I'll show you how you can wire this up in the sheet. So my out color, I can just put this into color. And now my ramp is in there. If I click on my ramp, this is what my ramp looks like. V, I'm going to put this in U. Right, so now it's vertical. And I'm going to reverse this. I think yeah. Going to reverse this. So now it's darker at the bottom, light at the top. But I can also do something that actually helps for the camera to do that type of thing on its own. So I'm going to look in here. I haven't done this in a long time. So let me see if the old mine is still a ticking the way that it should be. There should be a light info. Yup. So light info, and trying to remember how this is connected. And I really haven't done this in a really long time. So let me see. Let's say light position. Other. I need to get the other of this guy. That's what I need. So I wonder, let's see if this is easier to do it this way. I'm going to do not color balance. I'm trying to remember what that was. I don't think that was how it's set up. If I remember it, we'll go through it. I can't recall exactly what I'm looking to do at this moment. I'm getting old. I'm sorry. I'm getting old. So let's get this down here. You gotta remember my screen, I'm set to 2K on my screen size, so it's pretty large. And right click and assign material. There's so I got these nice wooden banquettes. So now that I've got these textures kind of figured out, I could drop that texture on here and it's gonna work the way that I want it to work. There's my composite. I'm gonna drop it on there. So I've kind of got this, I've got a rhythm to this now. So as I make changes to these shaders now moving forward, it will apply to everything, right? I'm going to go ahead and grab all the feet. Grab all the feet, and I'm going to assign. So those are all assigned to that. And if that's really the chrome that I'm going with, everything inside of my scene that's chrome would be that same chrome. So that'd be the way to go about it. So assign my wood. Let's go back through and assign that guy. Who's your daddy? He's your daddy. Let's make sure that this is. I think the thing I'm finding with this scene is that Some pieces were kind of smushed on themselves. And did I apply something to this? I don't think I did. I think it looks like there's, I mean, it looks like it's not inside of itself, but you know, it tis what it tis. All right. So let's actually put our wall back in place. I hit it. I hit our wall. Let's get that sun out of there. I don't want their crappy sun from the from that showing up. So I'm gonna unhide this, and I still need to make this Hypershade. This needs to be Lambert. Alright, so now I've got walls and stuff in here again. And let's go here and let's render this with Arnold. Let's render it with Arnold. Oh, I think my light's outside of my and it is. Come on inside there, Mr. Lighty Light. Come on in. Come on in, friend. Yeah. You come. You get in there, Chris. So let's see. Let's look at this corner over here and let's render that. And there it is. It's coming together. And I can see that this wood is highly reflective. The reflections of that need to come down, and that's, like I say, based off the Fresnel index of that particular object. I think I could, can it let you do that? Yeah, it does. So if I go here to wood, if I change my Fresnel index, this will start to change the wood. All right, so you can see, let's turn up the index and let's turn down the roughness. And there, yeah. You also have to adjust the angle of this too. A lot of minute tweaking. Or you can just turn off anisotropic reflectivity altogether and just adjust the reflectivity yourself. So if you do it this way, if you turn off the anisotropic reflectivity and adjust it by hand, you're kind of cheating, because that's not how anisotropic materials work. It really is based off of all these factors that we've talked about. So it's not something that I would personally do a lot of, but some people are like, hey, I don't have time for that. So, you know, I just say be careful if you're going to, you know, disconnect those things from each other. There we go, something like that. But my room's not done, right? So I need like a floor texture. So let's see if we can put together a floor texture really quick, because I'm actually tired of the floor looking like that. So let's do a floor texture. Floor texture will be really easy, I promise you. It's a 1950s diner. I'm gonna do checkerboard floor. So yeah. And for that, I'm going to just use a Fong. It's not Pong, it's Fong. That PH phonetically is a floor checker. So I'm going to drop this onto the floor. Boom, there it is. It's on the floor. And then here for my color, I'm going to go to the color. And see, there actually is a checker. I told you, it's going to be super easy. So now if I go back in here and render this, we can see, look at that, 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 look at that. Pretty nice. Look at that, look at that, look at that. It's our checker floor. Now our checker floor does actually have reflectivity to it, because the Fong actually has reflectivity for it. Reflectivity should be at like 0.5 reflectivity, which is kind of high, kind of high, kind of high. Yep, kind of high. So, yep, see, it's at 0.5. I'm going to turn that down some. I'm going to do this at like 0.2. I don't want it to be super reflective. All right, and that's all coming together. Now, as I said before, there's really not a way that you can have these pictures here and not have, you know, a raster based image in them, because they're pictures. Like there's not, I mean, well, okay, you would have to have a raster based image, but you necessarily would not have to leave Maya to do that. Maya has painting tools inside of it, but this video is not meant to encompass the painting tools inside of the paint effects tools inside of Maya. So for those images there, we'll Google like an image to use. So I'm gonna go in here and open up Chrome, and I'm gonna say birds and images. I'm just gonna grab an image of a bird that's just kind of like, hey, I'm a bird, buddy. Hi, I'm a bird. Come on now. Come on now. I'm a bird. Boom. Got a bird image. Got a bimage. Save image as. And we're going to save this to reference images on our desktop. Save. So I'm going to show you how to apply a texture to an object without having to unwrap it, which is freaking awesome, right? It's awesome, 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 awesome. So we're going to do that with the layered shader. Ha ha ha. We're going to do it with the layered shader. So the way we're going to do this is we are going to make ourselves a brand new layered shader. So kabloom. And we're going to take this box right here, and we are going to apply that said layer shader to it. And there it is. It is applied to it. There's my layered shader. I'm going to make another shader. So let's just do this shader here. I'm just going to make it a Lambert, because I don't really want it shiny. I just want it Lambert. And I'm going to say this is going to be image. Go back to my layered shader. And this is going to be wall art. Composite. I usually put composite on my layered shaders so that I know it's a composite of a couple of different shaders. And I'm going to drag my image shader into my layered shaders and drop it. And there it is. It's gray again. So here on my image right here, I'm going to go to color, go to my texture node, and I'm going to go to file. Right? So let's actually graph this out. So what I want to do, go back here to image. Let's break the connection. So go back to my image. Here on my texture square, I want to click on my texture square. And on file, and I did it again. So I'm going to click on my texture square. When it brings up create render node, I'm going to right click on file, and you'll see it says create texture, create as projection, or create as a stencil. I'm going to say create as projection. What that does and why this is awesome is that this gives me a 2D texture node that is basically a place 2D texture node. So you'll see now I have this projection. I have this projection 1, and right here it says image. I'm going to click on my image node, go here to image, go to my little folder. Let's go to the desktop. I've got a reference folder on here somewhere among these thousands and thousands. There's my reference. And I've got a void. I've got a void in here. There's my void, and say open. So you can see right now, everything looks green. It's like, what in the flipping what? So let's look at my graphed out texture right here. So with this, you'll see there's my image. There's my projection, right? There's the texture node for it. There's my matrix for it. I'm going to say I want to fit it to box. You can do that. But what I also need to do is here is say, click on my projection, and I'm going to say fit to box. Right? What it gives me, if you can kind of see it, there's this little this little guy right here. I'm going to click on that little T, because what that lets me do is move it out. I'm going to get my rotation, and I'm going to rotate this. And if I look at this in my, if I look at this in here, and where'd it go? Attribute editor. I'm like, where'd it go? There should be. I guess there's not though. Yeah, that makes sense. Because you're really kind of placing this on your own. So I turned it the right way, and then I can hit fit to box. And you can see, oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that little guy right there. There is my little bird. He is on that image. He is on that thing. Now, I could do one of two things, right? I could bring this, so I can have this now. I can go back to my image in here, and I'm gonna make another shader. I'm gonna do a blend, and let's go back to my composite, and I'm gonna put that blend in there, and I'm gonna bring the blend in front of my image, and this blend, I'm gonna make this like black or close to it. I'm gonna go back to my wall composite, and what you'll notice is for that blend, there is a transparency down here. I'm gonna right click on the transparency, and I'm gonna break the connection. So right now there's no transparency happening. If I were to turn the transparency all the way to white, you would start to see my other image come through, but right now it's not set that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that texture node, and I am going to right click on checker, and I can do this also as a projection. So let's see if this works the way that I want it to. It probably won't. There's my plane. That's what I want right there. And let's get this guy. Let's rotate it. Let's see if it'll fit to box now. Yeah, kind of doing what I want it to do. Not exactly. Huh. It's really not working the way that I want it to. Let's come in here and let's break this connection. It's not really working how I wanted it to. Huh. Yeah, that doesn't even... It's not even registering the way that I want it to. Let's see. Okay, so that's in front of that. That's my blend. Okay, turn off eccentricity so it doesn't have any highlights on it for right now. Okay, this is what I would want to do. So let's go here to this guy. Go to texture. Let's see my stencil. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. So I'll undo that and show you what I did. So I came to my blend. The blend itself has transparency on it, so I can change the transparency. What I want to do is I want to use the transparency to basically make it translucent where my image is at and make it opaque where the frame is at. So I'm just going to come in here to transparency, go here to my texture node, and I'm going to use the checker, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say I want to use it as a stencil. Using it as a stencil, what makes this really nice using it as a stencil is that it's basically just this, you know, just how it is right now. So I can come in here and let's do this like 1 by 1, right? And I'm gonna do, see if I can do, it won't let me. Yeah, it won't let me. I need to undo that. Let's see if it'll let me do it as a projection. I need a way that I can move that texture around, right? So let's do the checker again, but let's do it as a projection this time. And it's right. So you fit the box. Yeah, there we go. We'll use it. We'll do it as a projection because this way, this lets me be able to click on my little T, click on my little thing. Let's rotate this. There we go. That's kind of what I want. Let's fit it in the box. Let's fit it to the box. So I can scale this. All right, I can scale this. Just like that. I'm gonna go here to my place texture node. I'm gonna turn down the repeat to like 1 and 1. And what I was imagining I could do is being able to position this where I want to, but it looks like I really can't. Looks like I really can't do what I want to do with this guy. Yeah, this isn't gonna work the way I really want it to. It was a noble try, but it is not gonna work the way that I want it to. It is not. It is not. What I really need is like I need a interior box that is white, and the exterior needs to be the interior needs to be black, and the exterior needs to be white. So like a picture frame almost. And I don't think there's anything inside of this that I can use as a picture frame. Let's actually look at my grid. What does my grid look like? What can I do with my grid? I can do that. And can I also change its UV coordinates? Is that possible? Is it possible? It is possible. So we can still do what we want to do. We have to do it with a grid. Oh man. I told you, you can do a lot of texturing inside of Maya without ever leaving Maya. So here on my transparency, let's click on my texture node again. And I'm going to use my grid this time. I'm going to right click on grid, right click and hold, and then go to create as projection. I want to do it as a projection because that way I have something that I can still move around. All right, let's do my fit box. Let's go through my whole little ordeal right here. So fit box, I'm going to scale this out. Click on my little T right here so I can get my manipulation tool. I'm going to rotate this. And then let's do fit box again. Get my rotation a little bit better. And fit box. See, there we go. So I can go to my grid. And the grid itself has this place 2D texture node. And right now it's just repeating, right? It's a repeating thing over and over and over again. So it's repeating over and over and over again. But if I put this to 1 and 1, it doesn't repeat, right? So it's not repeating anymore. And with this not repeating, I wonder if I could, yeah, I can do that. That's an easy one. So I'm going to go in here to my utilities. There should be an inverse. Let's see if it'll inverse. Let's try something else first. Let's try. Okay, it has to be color that it takes. So there's a reverse node. There we go. So I'm gonna take my out color here and then put it into my projection, and it should have, well, you know what? I don't even need to do all that. What am I thinking about? Boom, 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 boom. Let's delete that. Go here to my, let's just change these two colors, right? This should be white, and this should be black. Sometimes we overcomplicate things, right? When we think about them too much, we overcomplicate them. I'm going to get my little projection and scale this out this way, and scale this out just like that. So now I have a texture around the frame of this. This blend that I'm using, this is going to be picture frame. This blend color can be whatever I choose it to be. Let's make sure, yeah, that's what it is. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, this is being controlled by my picture frame by the color right here. So yeah, that should be good. At least I think. Yeah, because there's no, let me break this for a second. Okay, so there it is. Out color. There we go. I don't know what was going on with that, but now it's showing right. So now, yeah, we go. I can make my frame whatever color I want it to be. So I don't know what was going on. Only thing I did was I went back to my shader right here and I broke the transparency connection, which turned off the transparency altogether. This is the projection that I'm using for transparency. I just left mouse click and drag this back down here to transparency, and now it shows up correctly. It's probably because I have a projection on there and it's just kind of, you know, jacking up or something. So you can see I just textured that without leaving Maya. I didn't leave Maya at all. I've put a bunch of textures on here and I've done them all inside of Maya. And I'm very proud of my little ugly bird on the wall. He is amazing. I will call him Philip. And it looks like, oh, we might have hit our first fatal flaw with Arnold. I don't think Arnold sees our beautiful little composite here. Let's see something. Let's go back and look at my wall art composite. We might have to run this same thing in here. So there's my layered shader right here. Here are the inputs. These are all going into input 2. So then put 1. These are the shading. These are the shading groups on the top level. And it looks like, I mean, this is right. This is right. Right? Because there's my out transparency going out right there. And I don't have an out glow, so I can get rid of that. So my out transparency is right here. Yeah, that should be, that honestly should be right. Yeah, I mean, that's what the composite is. Let's see what happens if we look at this in the Radeon renderer and see if it, sometimes the layered shader can be kind of messy. I probably shouldn't have done that as a layered shader. I probably should have done that as a oh, that's right, I don't have any lights for the other shader, for the other renderer rather. Let's go back to this. So besides, well, it has to be a layered shader because this is a texture and the other one's not. So you can't do it the other way around. Yeah, you can't do it the other way around. Or can you? Let's see. So this color right here. Let's click this guy right here and let's go here to color, to the texture node. Let's go to File. I'm going to right click for File and go to Projection. And there's my image that it's looking for. And I'm going to go get my Boyd. And yeah, he's in there all fugged up. He's fugged. He's fugging. He's fugly. Fugly, fugly, fugly. So boom. There's my projector. This is when it starts to get kind of grody inside of one of these. Because I've got this it right here. There's my projection, interactive. Let's do fit to box. I'm going to go back to my composite and let's get this out of there. Let's just delete that out of there. So now we're only looking at these two. So let's regraph that network so we can only see those two. There we go. Let's not move it. I just want to stretch it. And I want to click on the little T down here so I can rotate it. And rotate him. All right. So that should be pretty much how we had it. Let's see if Arnold recognizes him now. And it doesn't. Well, that's the first time we've had a big like limitation with Arnold. I wonder if this would even render in regular MentalRay. And I'm leaving this mistake in there because, you know, hey, it's a learning thing, right? And we are all doing that together. I think I got rid of something I shouldn't have. Let's do status line. Yup, got rid of my status line. So I'm gonna go in here and look at this. I'm going to set this to software render So this should be rendering now in Maya Software Renderer. Let's see if Maya Software Renderer will render this correctly. We're gonna hold our breath and see. I'm not really holding my breath. I'm not gonna do that. That's stupid. I'm not gonna do that. So these are all Maya shaders. So Maya's like, holy crap, what is this? What is this madness you've created? Because the other thing is too, is that if you're keeping these all procedural, because this is realistically, all of this is procedural except for the image of the bird. The bird image is the only thing in here that's not procedural. All of this stuff has to render at render time. It has to calculate all of those procedural textures and then apply them to the 3D objects at render time. So that can be computationally very heavy for a computer as well to do. Let's actually see. I'm interested to see what's getting hammered right now. So the only thing getting hammered is my GPU at 90%, but 90% of that is going to video encoding, which is something I'm not even doing right now. So actually see something. Relive. I'm gonna turn these things, turn this off. Let's just turn that off. Oh yeah, that made a huge difference. They're recording something that I'm not even using. So I think Maya is just about to crap the bed on itself. I'm gonna hit and hold escape. See if we can force Maya to stop trying to render. Escape out of its madness that it's stuck in right now. And I'm gonna pause this and then come back when this is unfrozen, because it's trying to render right now. So I'm gonna pause this and I'll be right back. So as you will notice, I got the render to stop, and right when it was stopping, everything stopped like it was supposed to, and then I had an issue with updates, right? So Windows went through and made its updates. Luckily, my recording was saved, but that meant that Maya shut down. It didn't crash. It was just shut down because Windows decided to do updates, right? So kept the recording and everything else. So anyway, where we left off with, we had the issue of with Arnold and our multi-layered shader that was for here. So the other thing that happened is my Chrome wasn't saved, and neither was my I'm trying to think what else wasn't saved. My Chrome wasn't saved, and neither was my multi-layer shader for the bird. So I'm gonna rebuild my Chrome really quick. So I'm just gonna go in here, get a Maya, and I might just do, you know what? Let's do an anisotropic, because anisotropic would look really good as a Chrome. So I'm gonna do anisotropic, and I'm going to put a ramp in here. So ramp, right? And then on the, still trying to think about something. There is a setting in here. Ah man, I cannot remember where I used to put that at. There was a light input that I would use sometimes with my ramps, and I'm really having like a brain fart moment. Graph that out. Let's go to close these guys. They get on my nerves. You get on my nerves. It really gets on my nerves with that because they're redundant. That panel is redundant. It is the attribute editor basically. So so in the UV, is it in the UV chord? Is that where I did it? No, that's not where I did it. I'm really Yeah, I'm not gonna mess with it because I really cannot remember where that sat at, but it was really cool when I used to do it. It basically looked at it based off of light input, and reflected that back. So I'm gonna go back and just add my chrome back to all my pieces that should be chromed out. Let's get all these guys right here. Make sure they're all chromed out. So, boom, boom. Yep. And then, and let's change this to Chrome and save it. So let's save it now. I didn't save it before. And it rebooted. Not rebooted, but it installed updates rather, right? So that kind of sucks. And these guys are two separate pieces. This is a separate piece. I'm gonna probably make the base of these all chrome. I can kind of see that, like those are all just chrome, and not the floor, but these would be chrome. So I'm just trying to get some like stuff to happen together, right? So just like things, just going through and getting them really quick. All these chrome, because if I change that chrome, because they all have that same shader on them, they'll all change accordingly, right? So that just makes sense. And I'm gonna make a shader for my plate. I am going to just use something very simple. Not gonna get super complicated about this. Use like a Fong, and this is gonna be plate. And let's grab all my plates. So all my plates. I have that many of them. So these are all the plates. Assign it. Let's get some color on this. So once again, I'm going to use a ramp. I like using ramps because I can get two colors to quickly mix together, which is pretty awesome. And I'm going to make this really kind of out here, and this right here. I'm going to bring this in just a tiny amount, and I'm going to set this to a circular map, and we're going to do it smooth. And I'm going to make this a lot more towards white, something like that. So it's just kind of like an ivory type of color. And that's okay like that. Don't know what I want to do with the oh yeah, the floor. We lost our floor shader, so we'll just do the floor shader again. So I'm just gonna go in here and do a Fong E, and this will be my floor. And I'm gonna go to my color, and I'm just going to do a checker. Bloop. And let's drop that onto our floor. And that's on our floor. Yeah, this is still reverse, looks like, right? So let's go in here and see. There we go. First the right way. That's pretty good. Let's look at this Fong. Let's turn down the reflectivity to like 0.2. And the reflected color that we put back out, let's not do black. Let's do a little bit like this. Roughness is good. Translucency or transparency rather is fine. I could do a bump map on this, but you know, maybe I will not do a bump map. Oh, okay, I know what I can do. So we've looked at the layered shader, but there also is a layered texture node inside of Maya. So if I go in here and let's look at where is it at? If you don't remember where something's at, there it is, layered texture. So I'm gonna click on my layered texture node. It looks just like my other node, right? It looks just like my layered shader node, except you can layer textures and not shaders inside of here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna break the connection on that checker. And let's look at it in here. Let's make sure, well, there actually is a command we can run. If we go in here and we say delete unused nodes, it'll delete all the unused nodes that are not being used. And I think it just got rid of, yeah, it did, because it was not in there. So get my layered shader in here. So what I want to do, let's drop this back. Let's go back and look at this. So here's my floor. I'm going to graph my floor out. So there's my floor. So graph it. So what I want to add in the color slot, I'm going to click on this, and I want to add underneath other textures, there's a layered texture node. So this layered texture node lives underneath a shader. So I'm actually able to layer shaders, but I'm also able to layer textures, which is pretty freaking cool. Because what I want to do is I want to add a second one in here. So I've got two in here. I'm going to go to the color node of this one, and I'm going to make this a 2D texture, make that my checker, and go back to my layered texture node, and I'm going to come to this guy here, bring this below. So this one right here, I'm just going to make this like a noise. And I'm going to back to my layered texture node, and you'll notice something that's different. In your layered shader, there isn't a blend mode, but in your layered texture, there's a blend mode. I can do over, I can do in, I can do out, I can do add, and adding both of them together. I can do subtract one from the other. I can do multiply and multiply them in together. So I'm going to multiply them, and then this noise right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the place 2D texture node for the noise. I'm going to make it, I'm going to tile it even more. So right now it's 1 by 1. I'm going to do it like 5 by 5. Actually, let's go the other way. No, I think that's cool. That's okay. So let's look at our noise type. I can change my noise to like a Perlian noise. I can do a wave. I could do a wispy noise. I can do space-time or whatever. I'm gonna do like Perlian noise. I can change the time of that. So you could animate that over time. I'm gonna change my threshold and make it, you know, not so, change the amplitude of it. And let's change the ratio how it mixes together. So something like that, maybe. So just giving some texture to this. If I go back to my layer texture node, I can change the way these two interact. Like if I go in here and do difference, I can still do lighten. I can do darken, right? And then there's also still the ability to change the alpha between how these work. So I could go in here and actually change the alpha. You can turn this layer off, make it not visible, and you have a hardware color. You can say alpha is luminance, meaning it's color. So right now I'm gonna do this as multiply maybe. So now they're multiplied together. So I have both of those happening on this one shader. So I've got two textures being added together, being multiplied together on this shader. So unlike my shader node, I'm not multiplying, I'm not putting two shaders together, I'm putting two textures together. So the layer texture node is also very useful, and it's underneath the other textures little slot. The other thing that I could do is back here with this guy, on reflectivity, I could actually take the out color or the alpha from this and drop this into reflectivity. What that would do is it would make it only reflective the areas where this was actually showing up white, and when it was black it would show nothing. So if I did this right now, let's save this. All right, if I did this right now, and I'm gonna unhide my room again because we lost all of that, right? My room's still hidden, We're gonna just unhide it. That's weird. It looks like when our scene went kaput, it messed up our original cube for our room. That's okay. We can just delete that guy. We'll make another cube. It's not a huge deal. It isn't, I promise. There it is. Boom. Let's scale it up. And actually, let's just leave it like this for right now. It doesn't really, it's not a real huge thing. So I'm gonna, I don't want to take the time to have to go through all that and waste time for you all. So I'm gonna go just to my Arnold renderer and see. Oh yeah, that's fine. So I can see that I'm getting everything that I wanted in my scene. My scene looks pretty okay. And yeah, my scene looks okay. It looks darker because there's no walls to hold in the light that's being generated from my area light. And let's get over here. And we can compensate for that. Let's just go to our lights, attributes. If it will bring them up for us, let's see. Come on, light. Show me your goodness. Show me your attributes. There you go. So, everything's cool. I'm gonna use color temperature. I'm gonna turn up my light to like 2048. And I'm gonna sample more. I'm gonna do 8 samples. So the more samples, the cleaner your light will actually get over time. Not over time, but it basically it's gonna sample that light 8 times when you're bringing things into it. Everything else is good. I don't want any filters on it. I'm gonna bring up the intensity of it just because there are no walls to hold it. It's probably not gonna make my scene very much brighter, which it doesn't. Let's crank up the exposure. I don't want to overexpose it, right? I just want to get a little bit more exposure for it. It looks okay. Doesn't look bad. Looks okay. So, got that going on. That's rendering there. Let's go back to Hypershade. Let's tab that. And I can see that I'm getting light in here. Light's working okay. Reflections are okay. I don't like the reflections on the floor. I think I'm going to have to disconnect that. Yeah, I'll disconnect that just so I can get more reflectivity on my floor. I think the floor needs more reflectivity. Alright, so more reflectivity on the floor. So 0.5. Whiteness, incandescence. Let's turn our ambient color up a little bit. Perhaps. Yeah. That's not bad. Alright, let's stop the IPR because this is what I've been rendering with. Been rendering with the IPR. Let's just get a real render out of this. And oh no, I had the wrong renderer selected. I'm gonna hold escape. I don't want the pro renderer. I want Arnold. And we're gonna render this with Arnold. The reason why I didn't want the Pro Renderer, because you have to use the materials from the Pro Renderer for it to render correctly, and none of these materials are from the Pro Renderer. These are all Arnold. These are all, well, actually it probably would have rendered because none of these are Arnold shaders. My bad. So the Pro Renderer would have worked, but we're more so setting this towards Arnold, so we're Gouda. So we can see things are coming together. It's not perfect. The floor is a little dark right now, and I can pump more light in here. But when I get walls back up in here, that's going to help, because right now there is no way for the room to hold any light to bounce any reflected light onto my floor, because the light's just bouncing out of the world. So, but really that's it. Really, this was a strategy of how to build shaders inside of Maya that you can basically get a scene. Now, I'll agree, you cannot get every scene to look really good with just Maya shaders, but something simple like this, you should understand the process of texturing well enough that you can use some base shaders and get some decent things out of your base 3D program, because at least with Maya, you've got a fair amount of textures, 2D and 3D texture nodes in there, and you can do a lot of compositing inside of Maya, and you can even, like we've seen, we can even apply shaders to things that have not been unwrapped, because this stuff, these booths have not been unwrapped. This floor has not been unwrapped. So there's ways to get around if you're doing something very quick. Like, yes, of course, you should always want to normally unwrap your stuff so that you can put unique detail onto it. And, you know, you're painting or hand painting or using a combination of raster-based images and some type of texturing program like Quixel or excuse me, I'm thinking about Quixel a lot. Either using a texturing program like Quixel or Substance Painter or even 3D Coat or Mudbox or ZBrush or wherever your thing is, right? You can do that, but you can also get some basic texturing stuff done directly inside of Maya. So hopefully this has been very helpful for you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And if you like what you see here on the Phoenix Inception channel and you like what Dr. Media is doing, then please subscribe and hit that like button. If you don't, then hit the don't like button and let me know in the comments why you didn't like it. Hopefully this was useful for you. And if not, hopefully we'll do some other videos on the channel that will be useful for you. We are in the process, well, I am in the process right now of building a brand new laboratory for all the Phoenix Inception things that go on here. So I'm in the midst of rebuilding that. Hopefully the sound sounds a lot better than my last videos, because we just invested in getting some studio mics here in the studio area, and we also invested in a camera. So we have one camera already here, which is the 1080p camera. It's really good. It's a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Cam, so it's a cinema style camera, very small, but that will be our B-roll camera, and we are waiting on our A-roll camera, which is also from Blackmagic. And if you did not know, Blackmagic just released a 4K version of the Pocket Cinema Cam. So we will have a 1080p B-roll camera, and then our main A-roll camera will be the new Blackmagic 4K edition, which I am very happy to get here in the studio and test out. So you'll look out for reviews of those things, and also look out for the build guides that are coming up. We're going to be doing like 3 builds this summer, 2 gaming builds and 1 brand new workstation build. And then I'm going to be doing a rebuild of the current workstation that we're working on right now, which is the Supernova station. And we're going to be rebuilding this station to be a Linux-only computer. So we're going to take all the power that we used to have in Windows and leash it on Linux and see how Maya runs underneath Linux, and see, you know, what advantages you would get by running the free operating system of GNU Linux. So anyway, hopefully this has all been helpful. And until next time, my digital mutants, I will see you later.